Tampa's my community. I grew up here, went to school here, and my wife and I make our home here. What makes Tampa special are its people. So when I represent someone injured in my community, it's personal. Call my office and speak to a real lawyer and not some referral service. I will fight the insurance companies to get the settlement that you deserve. At the law office of Clinton Parish, we take the pain out of being hurt.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong. Go get 'em! It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
You see, Head & Shoulders has Scalp Shield technology, protects against flakes even between washes. It's never not working.
Kind of like us. We're never not working. Number 15?
That's my rub.
Ooh, nice.
Never not working.
Never, ever, never, ever not working.
Welcome everybody to Juneau, Alaska.
I don't like this one.
Me neither.
Let's get out of here.
Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Sugar Chateau Desserts is a specialty bakery located in the Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. We will create delicious and one-of-a-kind treats for any occasion. Sugar Chateau is currently shipping cakes in a jar, offering a variety of different flavors in a single-serve container that can help you celebrate in accordance with social distancing. Place your orders today by calling 803-526-7895 or visiting sugarchateaudesserts.com.
Q Time is a classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food? Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
I'm returning to Clinton Parish, and Tampa's my community. I grew up here, went to school here, and my wife and I make our home here. What makes Tampa special are its people. So when I represent someone injured in my community, it's personal. Call my office and speak to a real lawyer and not some referral service. I will fight the insurance companies to get the settlement that you deserve. At the law office of Clinton Parish, we take the pain out of being hurt.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong.
Go get 'em!
It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
You see, Head & Shoulders has scalp shield technology, protects against flakes even between washes. It's never not working.
Kind of like us. We're never not working. Number 15?
That's my rub.
Ooh, nice.
Never not working.
Never, ever, never, ever not working.
Welcome everybody to Juneau, Alaska.
I don't like this one.
Me neither.
Let's get out of here.
Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders scalp shield technology.
Sugar Chateau desserts.
My producer in my ear. I'm not sure if the people out there can hear my producer though.
That's our producer working in the background. Shout out to producer Melody out there running it, doing the thing. Make sure we're
That's
running.
our executive producer.
Right.
Yeah, we hear you, Melody.
We are live on the air. Live on the air. Welcome to another edition of the BCSN SportsWrap. Always trying to figure it out. You know, like I said, I don't know what you're hearing out there. It can sound like a Star Wars movie right now, Drew. You got all kinds of stuff going on in the background, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway.
This would be cool if they couldn't hear the conversation that we hear, but
yes,
I'm pretty sure
I don't know. I don't know. You know, who knows if anybody can hear the background conversation, you know. But you know, this is how the sauce gets made. Look, you know what I'm saying? It's like going to a restaurant, Drew, where they have the open kitchen in the background, right? And you just see everything going on. You see the cooking, you see the chef yelling in the background, "Hey, I need some sauce over here." So it's just
long as you don't see the butcher. Long as you don't see the butcher room where they do the meat at, though. You know, you don't want to see that. I've worked in enough restaurants. You don't want to see that. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, there you go. So shout out to producer Melody out there doing the damn thing, producer Roy. We are the BCSN SportsWrap, Bryan and AD here. And it's good to be back with you on this MLK weekend. Drew, we got a lot of basketball news to talk about on today's show. A lot of buzzer beaters. Conference play is heating up, my friend. And man, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on. So on today's show, we'll try to get into some of the basketball happenings a little bit later on in our show. We'll kind of start the first segment with that. And then in the second hour, Charles Edmonds of Alcorn State Sports Radio is going to be joining us. I tell you, one of the hottest teams in the SWAC right now that I don't think anybody saw coming was the Alcorn State Braves. And they are...
So, Brian, here's the question with that. At what point are teams going to be who we thought they were? Because I think it's still too early to say some of these 0 and whatever, 1 and whatever teams are that bad, and some of these and O teams are that good. What point do we say, especially given COVID, that teams are contenders or pretenders?
I'm going to go February 1. The problem with that, though, you could be in a hole. You could be down a couple of wins, and it may never get you out. For example, speaking of some schools, whether it be some schools in the MEAC who have not played, there's a handful of schools who still haven't played a conference game. There's schools in the SWAC who took some L's due to forfeits. Other teams that are experiencing the COVID protocols and games that they could be winning, they're not getting a chance to win. So all of that's going to affect, and hate to say it, but it's giving confidence to teams who are actually playing. So I don't know, Drew. I don't know if we'll really know. I say Valentine's Day. Maybe around Valentine's, we might know who they are, who we thought they were. But then again, that could be too late.
It's going to be too late for some other teams. But yeah, I'm kind of like you. February 1 is going to be it. Normally by this time, by MLK Day, you kind of got a good sense of who's who. But I don't think anyone in any conference of our HBCUs has played with a full squad yet. Either they've missing a coach, they're missing one of the players in their rotation. Somebody has been missing the entire season. So it's probably is going to take to around February before we really have a good sense of who's going to do what this season.
Right. So as we move off the basketball court, we're going to get into a little conversation coming up in this first hour with good friends, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, and Jamie Walker from Coach Work Productions, who will be breaking down some of this. Look, you thought conference churning was dead. Now it comes back again. It's like Omicron. It's like Delta. I don't know what version of conference churning we're on, but we're on a new variant of conference.
Can we use a different analogy, bro?
I almost used something much worse, and I caught myself in mid-sentence. So I'm going to stick to COVID.
You sound like me on that one, coming up with bad analogies. That's my job, Brian. You cannot do that. You are the voice of reason on this show. I'm the one who says the crazy things. Now you're trying to steal my thunder. I'm the one who's supposed to say that it's another version of COVID with these conference churning.
I got you. All right, I'll leave that to you. But those guys will come in as some news regarding Hampton University and where they'll potentially be moving to, and how that will affect their Big South compatriot. I don't even know if that's the right word, but North Carolina A&T. And so we'll get a chance to talk about all of that coming up a little later. But Drew, let's get into some basketball talk here in the first segment before time gets away from us. We're here for a good time, not a long time. Make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to the JBN YouTube page. And if you're watching on Facebook, make sure you like. Go ahead and share the show here as we get going. First buzzer beater I want to get to, Drew, happened in Baltimore, Maryland, as Coppin State's Ninda Tark, whose brother last year actually was the offensive and defensive player of the year. But Coppin State, with the score tied up at 76 after a pair of free throws, Ninda just gave a little heave-ho from about half court. And what do you know? A half-court buzzer beater goes in. Coppin State gets the win with about a 60-footer, which beautifully right down the middle, off the glass. And Coppin State moves to 2-0 in MEAC play. Morgan State dropped to 1-1, Drew. You got a chance to watch the highlights. What are your thoughts? What's the best buzzer beater that you've tossed up or had a chance to watch?
Me personally, you talk about from this weekend or in general? Because and anybody goes to my Twitter page at BCSN Drew, I retweeted about 4 or 5 HBCU buzzer beaters from the weekend. And Brian, by the way, I just was sent another buzzer beater that didn't even make that tweet list that I put out, and I'm going to when we go on break, I'm going to email that one to you, and maybe if we show some of these buzzer beaters throughout this show, we may need to add that one to the highlights also. So, but yeah, that one made ESPN top 10, so you have to put that one up there.
Well, that one made ESPN top 10, but I wonder if your video that you received by any chance could have been Stillman. And Stillman.
Yes, it was.
Okay, that was where I was going with number 2, as Stillman College capped off a trip to William Carey University with a buzzer beater in overtime, as David Reynolds hit a game winner from half court to give Stillman a 66-64 win in overtime, stopping Stillman's had a little 2-game losing streak there. And I mean, it was the same. And according to what I'm reading here from Stillman College, running the same play from last year's buzzer beater, which Devin Merriweather hit, Reynolds, the 6'3", 230-pound forward from Pensacola, Florida, hit the shot out of a Stillman timeout to answer a 3-pointer by William Carey College with 3 seconds left in overtime. So I'm looking forward to you going ahead and dropping that out there at BCSN Drew. And you know what I'd like to see? If someone from Stillman, I know that Stillman always pays attention to what we do. I would love to see a mirror of the play from last year involving Merriweather and then the shot by David Reynolds. That's what I'd love to see.
Well, once we finish this podcast, I'm going to call the SID at Stillman. I don't know. He may have been listening to us as we was talking about it, which may have been why he texted me as soon as we got on to tell us about this. But I'm going to call the SID from Stillman, Chris Meganson, and see if he can pull those 2 clips for us together. And we may run it. What the heck? I may send it over to Doc's show and have him run it on Tuesday night when he does his basketball recap.
Right.
That being inside the HBCU Sports Lab.
Yeah. While we're talking about close finishes and games that went down to the buzzer, how about the one that went on in Montgomery, Alabama at Alabama State? Wasn't quite a buzzer beater, but Kenny Strawbridge, a young man who already is in the books, and made a Sports Center top 10, I believe, for a game winner last year against Southern. This year against their in-state rival Alabama A&M with the score tied up at 55. He hits a nice little putback layup with 24.7 seconds left. Alabama State goes on to get a huge win over their rival in-state. That was one of the ones that you and I both tweeted out earlier today. And then as I think of buzzer beaters or maybe shots that could have won the game, how about the 2 that could have won some ball games, Drew? In the SWAC, for starters, you had Texas Southern taking on Alcorn State, and Alcorn State had a lead as much as 18 in the second half, 11 with about 5 minutes to go. But Texas Southern, showing the heart of a champion, battled back, got it to within 1 point, actually had a putback layup that could have given them the lead against Alcorn State, but they missed the layup, had 2 chances there to take a go-ahead basket against Alcorn State. So Alcorn State snatching, what do you like to say? I like to say sometimes snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. Yes. Barely avoided the upset in dramatic fashion, but Alcorn State still remains unbeaten in SWAC play. And also in the SWAC, in Mississippi Valley State, you had a game 62-60 that ended with a shot. I've never seen this before, Drew, but a baseline jump shot that could have been a game-winning shot get wedged between the backboard and the rim. And Mississippi Valley State, unfortunately, loses to Bethune-Cookman. Any other buzzer beaters that I missed there in that run?
No, but Brian, I do have some good news.
Yeah.
Chris was listening to us, and he just texted me the buzzer beater from last year also. So
Ooh.
we'll see. I'll see if I can get those over to our producer and let them do what they do behind the scenes and see if we can get those clips up at some point in time today. If not, once again, you'll see them on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on Tuesday.
Right. So plenty of college basketball to talk about. We'll get into a little bit more of the college basketball stories from the past weekend. Any other highlight, any other team that you want to highlight before we get out of this particular segment, Drew? Any one team or game that you want to highlight?
Are we staying with the Division I level, or are we talking college basketball in general?
Spin the wheel, wherever you want to go with it.
Savannah State women.
Yeah.
Undefeated.
Yeah.
Paul Quinn men. When you take out the Division I games that are considered exhibition games, undefeated. So we could talk about those. Talladega's men. With that lone loss on the season, one of the top teams in NAIA. Where else do you want me to spin it without it landing on COVID, Brian?
Well, yeah, don't go too deep because we want to just set that up as a primer for us to come back and something to talk about here a little bit later in the show, especially when we get Charles. I do want to make mention of a great game that I thought I saw between Howard and Norfolk State on Saturday, played in Byrd Gymnasium at Howard. Norfolk State somehow, the easy winner of the day. This was my stone cold lead pipe lock that I never got a chance to really send out. Norfolk State was a 3.5-point underdog going up against a team that had not played in about 21 days. Norfolk State gets the 77-74 win. Although I'm not gonna lie, Drew, I sweated that a couple times because Norfolk State blew some leads there in that ball game. But Norfolk State gets the win. Joe Bryant, I'm telling you, as I just saw a tweet by Stephen Gaither, so I can't even take credit for that. Joe Bryant putting up some ridiculous numbers this week, as Stephen Gaither tweeted out, a lot for player of the week, averaging something like 25 a game, and just the shot production and the look. I'll get into this deeper, but when I watch some teams, I just shake my head at the level of basketball I'm watching. But every time I watch Norfolk State, I don't come away disappointed at what I'm watching. I tell you, I am what Coach Robert Jones has going on at Norfolk State right now is top level, and look, we talk about I have a dream. I have a dream for every black college basketball team to get on that level, to get on the level with Norfolk State and what Coach Robert Jones is doing over there. Because I mean, the just the production and what I saw, and just the way they play, I love it. I love it. All right, Drew, let's take a break because we've got our guests coming up in the next segment. Dr. Kenyatta Cavil from inside the HBCU Sports Lab, and then Jamie Walker is going to be joining us, and we're going to get into a little conversation. The new variant of conference churning. We'll talk about that coming up after this break. You're watching the BCSN SportsWrap. We'll be back in just a moment.
Sugar Chateau Desserts is a specialty bakery located in the Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. We will create delicious and one-of-a-kind treats for any occasion. Sugar Chateau is currently shipping cakes in a jar, offering a variety of different flavors in a single-serve container that can help you celebrate in accordance with social distancing. Place your orders today by calling 803-526-7895 or visiting sugarchateaudesserts.com.
Q Time is a classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit HBCUPrideJoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant.
We're coming in after
Avenue,
this, guys.
Right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life. Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell them mama hungry. But you stay on hard.
Okay, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan and AD here. And coming up here in this segment, we've got our guests joining us, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil and Jamie Walker. It's going to be joining us here in a second.
There they are.
We got them.
Yes,
all right,
sir.
all right. How you doing, Doc? How you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing well.
Good. How are you?
Great. Good to have you guys.
I got to get this in. You know, Bryan got Dr. Kenyatta Cavil on here. You know, I had this homework assignment. I thought I was doing good with this conference churning work, but I had to call Doc. We had to get some special office hours in on this one, Dr. Cavil. And we took it from office hours to a full-blown study session. So we invited Jamie in with us, too.
I like it.
Well, the Friday news dump, which is a real thing. If you don't believe in the Friday news dump, just pay attention to what goes on out there and when certain stories get dropped. Because the Friday news dump just dropped a bombshell of bombshells over the on Friday as it came out. I believe John Rothstein I think he's of CBS Sports. I don't know if he was the first to report it or who was actually the first. He seems to be the one that a lot of people are referencing. Reported that Hampton University is ready to leave the Big South Conference and move to the CAA, which is the Colonial Athletic, I believe it's the Colonial Athletic Association, along with Monmouth, who's actually another Big South opponent or Big South school, and then Stony Brook. I don't know. I don't even know where. I think Stony Brook is somewhere. They're not in the Big South, but it's not quite a rating of the Big South. But anyway, Hampton being the big draw, and of course, if you think about the arc of Hampton University, I believe they were one of the founding members of the CIAA as far back as 1920. I think I read that the CIA was founded on their campus. So after years in the CIAA, they moved to the MEAC in the late 90s, right before the turn of the century. Spent about a good 20-something years in the MEAC. And then I think it was 2018 when they left the MEAC to go to the Big South, and now appear to be moving. And so Doc, I know you have obviously in your nature of work and what you do, but just as a historian, one of the interesting quotes that I read was a quote that said, moving to the Colonial Athletic Association was part of the plan all along. That kind of surprised me. I think that was a quote that was attributed to Dr. Dennis Thomas when he was the athletic director at Hampton. But when you hear that quote, what do you hear when you hear that? And maybe just speak on, if you can, how this move came about and just your general take.
Yeah, I think when you read the historical framing of it, it puts you in the mindset that the aspirations of the individuals involved that were leading, namely President Harvey, as it's intriguing that he has announced his retirement, but some people says he's got his, his dream of what he wanted to bring the athletic department in alignment with the CAA. Oddly enough, it's called Colonial, which brings in so many different frameworks that makes this even more intriguing as a conversation. But it is what it is. But it's my understanding, if you read in that article and you talk to people particularly connected with Hampton and those that know President Harvey, that his goal was to align Hampton University with the institutions associated with the CAA. I think what also is intriguing about this, as we must put in the context of the conversation, of the CAA has churned as well. So this is not the same CAA that he wanted in terms of his aspiration at that time. And so I'm not sure how many people will really reference and talk about that when they say, this is a long-lasting dream. And I think that's something that we have to put in the context when we get a little deeper into this dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Drew. If you just jump in there if you want to.
Well, I'm gonna shift the focus to Jamie. Jamie, North Carolina A&T joined Hampton in the Big South. We in HBCU were looking at this as a potential new rivalry or renewed rivalry in the Big South, one that came from the from the BAC, and we're actually originally from the CIAA, BAC, and then following them into the Big South. So, what is your feelings as a North Carolina A&T alum and fan on now you're there by yourself in a similar situation as a Tennessee State is in the OVC, and we will get to Tennessee State a little bit later on in this conversation. Go ahead with that.
It's interesting, Drew, because the way that everything went down when it came to actually choosing the Big South, it was never a question of what the motives was, but behind the ultimate goal. But I always questioned why the Big South. So it took me doing some research as well. And quite honestly, the Big South is a stepping stone to another conference. That is how several teams have used this conference to actually springboard themselves into other places. So I think, quite honestly, with the headquarters being in Charlotte, with the teams being, within the immediate, vicinity of the Big South footprint, it made sense if they were going to jump conferences per se, if they were, looking to springboard themselves in further in the FCS. But I always question why the Big South. And so, those that have, a more of an inside presence than I do within the school have said, this is not the end goal. The Big South was never the end goal. The Big South was just being, I guess, in a sense, being used to springboard themselves into another conference. And if you talk to, there's several, blogs and folks that are inside the actual university that have deeper, I guess, more coverage or more footage than I do, or just, are able to talk to those insiders that, they're not surprised by this at all. especially Hampton. It was never set to be, it was cool that Hampton was in the same conference. But this talk that they were going to the Colonial, which Dr. Cavil, you may have hit it right on the head. It is interesting just based on its name. But that was the goal. President Harvey of Hampton, talked about how he wanted to have that rivalry with William and Mary. So it was having that thought process and just the schools within the state of Virginia. I think Hampton's goals wasn't necessarily for the progress of HBCUs per se. There was some other interest in there as well. And so, A&T at this point, simply is just saying, okay, from a football standpoint, because you're talking about 5 teams that play football if Monmouth and, it eventually goes as well. Because, that's been rumored, but it hadn't been confirmed. You got 5 football playing institutions. The rest of those schools are in the ASUN. So what do you do now at this point?
And let's be real, Jamie. We've been around in this media long enough to know where there's smoke, there's fire. If it's rumored, it's probably 90% of the time it's going to happen. We all know that. So it's just a matter of timing.
I agree. But from you try to look at this from a totality standpoint when you're talking about all sports. But we all know football moves the needle when it comes to a lot of these, these decisions a lot of times. So I'm not exactly sure what the next move is, but of course, all of these schools are scrambling. You're talking about, the Colonial losing teams. Dr. Cavil said it earlier. The Colonial losing teams. So who do you go see to make sure that your conference is on good footing? And so now I'm not exactly sure what the Big South does from here. But now it's kind of, A&T, Charleston Southern, and a few more. Kennesaw is playing ASUN football next year. So what do they do? What does A&T do at this point? I'm just not sure. But the powers that be seem to feel like they're in good footing right now, and everything is fine. At least on the surface. Underneath, we'll find out what the move is.
I love the way Jamie Walker just keeps it straight, no chase. He said, they seem to think everything's fine. We'll see. But I would like to level set a little bit as we get in there, and then I'll follow up with some additional questions. I think there's 2 things that institutions are chasing out there, specifically as HBCUs. There's this huge desire on the athletic side, driven by football, is to operate your program at the FBS level. I've heard that by a couple of the back channels, if you would, in terms of Hampton. Their real desire is to get to the FBS level. And this is from folks that talk to other folks that are extremely high in the hierarchy in terms of administrative framing of this. The other part of this is the academic side, which we very rarely talk about, right? Which is the desire for some of these HBCUs to get to be one of the first HBCUs, not only to be FBS, but to be at the R1 level. You just heard the announcement that it flooded the market, that Southern and Prairie View A&M got their R2 status now, which includes some of the teams in terms of the MEAC, Howard, which has always been recognized in terms of the research dollars and the number of doctoral programs and students, therefore they graduate in that program. Morgan State is another one that is pushing for that R1. Outside of that, you have North Carolina A&T pushing for R1. And when you get into the SWAC now, you have FAMU, Jackson State pushing for that. Texas Southern, in its way, is also pushing for that. It slipped, but they recommitted that paperwork, and they probably will be in a position where they get their R2 status. And now you have Southern and Prairie that joined them. Oddly enough, the only Division II program out there that you must consider in this dialogue is Clark Atlanta University. Now, I talk always about the need to look at them in expansion, which is one of the reasons, because people ignore how connected athletics and academics are when you talk about the administrators. The other one outside of that is Tennessee State in terms of OVC. A lot of talk in terms of what that look like, but I think it's important to level set what that means in terms of what this looks. From fan base standpoint, they're looking at rivals. I'm not too much where you can show, particularly in football, maybe a little more in basketball, that Hampton and A&T were that big of a rival, other than when you go back to the CIAA days, which obviously in a lot of ways is ancient history as we look at it in this frame. But it is important to have that connection. But these are where you frame it. It is also important when you start looking at these things, when we talk about dissecting this, is when you talk about conference movement, we tend to look at football. As everybody said, as Monmouth leads, Big South is down to 5 teams. That is correct. But if you look on the basketball side, they're still right at 11, 12 teams. And while football is something that gets interest, the money that really pays the bills at Division I, once you get out of the Power 5 conferences, is really basketball, because you guaranteed a check from the NCAA money. And so you got to look at how much you're splitting that. What does that look like in terms of maintaining that framework? So those are the things that I'm intrigued when you look at these moves of conference churning, of what this is next and what can we anticipate.
Now, Doc, let me before I turn it over to Bryan, you made me think about something. You know, we saw in the FCS where you saw conference alignments, like what is it, the A7 or something like that, where you had a couple of conferences come together to preserve an automatic bid when teams did not have that 6 threshold in order to maintain an automatic bid as a separate entity. Do you think that is something that we may see conferences like the Big South, and correct me if I'm wrong, the A-Sun still does not have 6 yet also, if I've got that right, or is the A-Sun part of that A7 group that I'm talking about?
To create the A7, which is this automatic qualifier, and the 7 is because they were the 7th team to ask to be automatic qualified. It was a partnership between the WAC and the A-Sun. The Atlantic Sun is
correct. That's what I thought.
So it's important when you look at it in 2 ways. It's one, do you have the automatic qualifier and are you trying to maintain it? 2, are you trying to ascend and obtain the automatic qualifier? The unique situation with the A-Sun and the WAC is they never had an AQ because they didn't have football FCS programs. So they were seeking to get the AQ. And the NCAA bylaw says one of the first metrics that you have to do really to get any automatic qualifier in any sport is to have what? 6 teams, and there's some other language that I won't add into it, which means contiguous Division I teams for a amount of time. Sometimes they waive that part of it. But essentially, you have to have 6 members. Well, neither of those conferences had 6 members, so they did the next best thing is let's partner together and seek the qualifier as a group framework, and that's where you get the AQ7 from. That is going to be different from Big South or the OVC, that essentially both of them will be going to 5 teams if Monmouth leave. And remember, that's in the sport of football. So there's a couple of things here. They got 2 years. When you dip below the 6, the NCAA just doesn't cut you off automatically. And that's something that we kind of forget either. We like, all right, they down, it's out. No, they give you a probationary period, essentially 2 years. What some people would say is get your act together, right? So you get back to 6. And so that's something to think about. The other thing is when you talk about the A-Sun, is Jacksonville is the 6th member of that conference. They have decided that they won't go FBS until 2023. So essentially next year, A-Sun can have their automatic qualifying bid because they'll have 6 schools at the FCS level, My understanding that WAC, when you look at those, they'll actually have 6 teams as well. So they should be able to have an automatic qualifier. So you're going to have multiple automatic qualifying bids. There's another trigger that says also in the 1AA FCS playoffs, as they term it now, it says that half the field has to be non-automatic qualifiers. So they might have to expand the tournament. So there's a lot of triggers in here that we really don't look at in these hidden bylaws that just fascinates me. And I guess you can call me kind of that nerd, or as they say, the dean of this stuff, is because I just go and dig and look for all these rules. There's another one out there that we got to remember that talks about what does a conference have to do to maintain its Division I status? And so there's a lot of backstories about you have to have the sport of football, then you have to have basketball. If you don't have basketball, then you have to have 2 other sports. And they look at it both from a men's sports and a women's sport. They look at whether you have team sports versus individual sports. Well, team sports, obviously, that's football, basketball. Individual sports are like track and field and some of those sports. So those are some things that you may not have a framing on either, that you may have to consider in terms of the minimum number of sports for a conference to have classified as Division I to make sure they qualify for the basketball tournament to get their hands on that guaranteed money. So it's a lot of moving parts out here of things that you must consider about what's next. And then you got to think about the desires of the administration, because we tend to look at the AD. And no disrespect to the ADs and vice presidents on our level, they not making these decisions. They might come out there and be the front person to tell you, and they're not making those decisions. I'm sorry. You know, a lot of them are great friends, and some of them over the years have put themselves in good positions that they can carry us some favor and have some momentum. But this decision is made by presidents and chancellors, and usually 1 or 2 people on the board. It's not even the whole board. Now, they get together and they got to vote. But it's 1 or 2 people key on that board that are driving the decisions that everybody else has to follow by. And that's why I laugh when we got these fans talking about they going to do all this. I said, y'all hadn't even studied and researched this. It's not really that simple. It's not AD, VP of Athletics making these decisions. And I'm literally privileged to talk with these individuals, sometimes being in the same room with these individuals, listening to these calls. So I'm not telling you what I think or what I theoretically, I'm telling you what I already know in regards to what takes place here. And so if you want to hear that information, I'm here to give it. If you're not, I can understand. Sometimes this is too much for some people. They don't want to believe it. They don't see it. And that's fine. It's not personal. You're not in my class.
Look,
so,
Doc. All we care about is who we gonna play on Saturday as a fan.
No, that's fascinating.
It's a good point you bring up, Doc, because I think what people also forget is that the NCAA serves at the will of the presidents. And I've always heard NCAA President Mark Emmert say that when people fuss at him, he always turns it back to, well, we serve at the will of the presidents. I'm there to get beaten up and make a lot of money, but I serve at the will of the presidents. It's like the commissioner of the NFL. He serves at the behest of the owners, not the players. So people have to.
I hate using that word "own." The executives.
Yes, the executives.
It's like a Fortune 500 business. And we put you a CEO, chief executive officer, but you answer to that board, and there's a chief person on that board. And so if you study businesses, right? Let's cut this down, because this all sports is, and that's what we do at Texas Southern University. We teach our students about the business of sport. So y'all can keep up with that fandom, and it's nice, and I have a good time. I follow my team, but I'm looking at everything from a business perspective, culturally, financially, geographically, regionality, historically, right? Culturally, frameworks of all these things together. That's what makes up what takes place, sports in general, but even more so athletics at the collegiate level.
Right. That's what I firmly believe as you talk about conferences, and folks, if you are upset about the move that you see Hampton making or what's going to happen to A&T, sure, if you're wasting sort of I hate to say you're wasting your breath, but you're wasting keystrokes by sending that email and that trigger off to the AD. No, you need to send that over to your president. Send it to your school. Oh, sure. Go ahead and copy the AD and the head coach and whoever else you want to blind copy or CC on.
And CC the board of whatever you call it for your institution, because public is called one thing, and private is called the other.
A lot of people can't find the board. It's easier to find the president's email than it is the board, probably. And it's probably built that way for a reason. But I would say you go send the president an email if you are an Hampton alum, if you are a North Carolina A&T alum. But I personally think that I will not be surprised to see the NCAA, given what's happening. And we talked about the number of conferences that are dropping down to 6 and 5 members. I would not be surprised to see the NCAA make some changes to the FCS scheduling or what it takes to get into the playoffs, given some of the conference churning and the fact that you have a handful of, actually now three, SWAC, CAA, and there may be somebody else who has 12. I was talking about
you got the Big
FCS.
South, Big South. You got the Big South.
Hold on, I was saying
Missouri
the FCS
Valley.
level 12 teams.
Big South.
12
Big
teams.
South. You got Big South.
I think he's talking about football side.
I'm talking football.
Football. Yeah.
Yeah, not
Big South. Big Sky. Big Sky. Okay. I mean Big Sky. I meant to say Big Sky. You got the SWAC,
Missouri
and you got
Valley
the Missouri Valley.
The CAA,
yes,
and the SWAC.
Right.
And the Missouri Valley Football Conference is different than the Missouri Valley Basketball Conference. Everybody needs to know that.
Yeah. Let me bring this as we are coming forward and spinning this, and before we get ready to close out on this segment, Jamie, as you're hearing from North Carolina A&T alums and in the discussions that are going on, what do you project? What does the future look like if you had to guess or educationally guess what it might look like in 2022 or 23?
It's interesting. You hear a split of people, because I'm both in the know with folks that are more in tune with the athletic directors and presidents, and then I know former players and fans. And I think culturally, players and fans are more in tune with preserving HBCU culture and wanting to go back to that. You saw some of that reflected in attendance. You saw some of that reflected in just the buzz about A&T in general. You're not hearing much anymore. SWAC is taking, some of I would say the shine away from what you once heard when it came to North Carolina A&T. When you're talking about those schools in the SWAC hiring coaches, talking about recruiting, everything that's going on right now, the SWAC, again, I said in the spring, I'll continue to say it, they're hotter than fish grease right now. And so, when you're talking about, the side of those older members that say we want to move up in advance and eventually get to the FBS level, they're saying these are the steps that we have to take in order for A&T to do this. And I got to include what Dr. Cavil said about the academia side as well. When you're talking about trying to obtain R1 level when it comes to research, that has been a big thing as well. Not saying it's putting down athletics in lieu of that, but I think there are some that want to travel in those same circles, and you can maintain being a true HBCU and do that at the same time. It's definitely been proven, which, by the way, it was surprising to see Clark Atlanta be included in that mix as well, because we always talk about wanting to always have that Atlanta market within the SWAC. It's amazing that they're putting, it was just amazing to me that they were including HBCUs that were at the R2 level when I just researched and read up some more as well. But, as far as A&T is concerned, you do have a division of a contingency on both camps. I expect them to remain in the Big South because I think the Big South will obtain some more teams. But I think at that first jump, that first crack at the FBS level, I think they'll jump into it. I think it's just a matter of time. So in the next 2 years, I think they'll remain where they are. But I think at the first sign of or the first opportunity to get an FBS, I think they'll take it at that point.
Go ahead. Look like Drew. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to follow up. Jamie, you said the Big South adding teams, and this is for both the Big South and the CAA. The rumors that they may be trying to raise the BAC again. I'll just go ahead and put it out there. Doc, please feel free to comment on that. Do these other conferences raid and get the BAC, some of these BAC teams to come over? We've heard Howard possibly to the CAA. Hampton wants Howard to join them. There's no secret about that, whether they join them or not, and do we get into almost thinking is their ice colder than our ice sometimes when we look at some of these decisions? I'll let either one of you all comment on that.
I think there is certainly an idea that you have some institutions that chase what they see as branding their institution, and it does come down to ICE's colder theory in terms of association. I just think that that's misdirection, and you really don't understand how institutions are measured if you're trying to brand yourself with those institutions, nor are you understanding the cultural relevance between the governance structure, if you allow me to use this African studies framework, versus the public structure in terms of what that looks like. And so you're going to have some problems if you don't really navigate this in such a way. And if you hadn't studied it, you're not really from HBCU culture, you can misconstrue what you think you know about the culture of HBCU sports and African American people in general. So I think that's something that they need to really be aware of that you can't just chase every beanstalk out there. I would say that you need to refrain from using the word raid. If those commissioners heard you use that term, they would shut up in terms of that. Because you got to remember, these are supposed to be partners and they're supposed to work together. And so really, for the most part, you don't actively see conferences go after institutions. Usually it's institutions that seek to be aligned with the conference. So it's not going to be the CAA or it's going to be the Big South. And I know we're splitting hairs in terms of that it looks like, but I think contextually it's important to make sure that we kind of put that on the table. Now, there'll be back channels. The way this works out for people that may not understand this, very rarely will you get a commissioner that directly calls the president. You'll get some back channels, somebody that's connected with a commissioner, or somebody that's connected with the president or chancellor. And like I said, I'm not even really going to deal with the ADs. Sometimes they may, long-standing ADs may have some type of power about what this looks like, but usually they're just the ones that carry out directives. They'll reach out and see, hey, you got any interest? Oftentimes the same thing that you hear at the professional level with coaches, that they have their agents. Same thing, you have these consulting companies, and they're the ones reaching out to an athletic director or president. Hey, you got some interest? This is what we look like. This is what we're trying to do. What's going on? So you would have to really have insight in terms of what a president, chancellor, or their board to really give some detailed decisions on what's next. The rest of it, if we're doing, is just a big old guess and hypothesis. We're playing a big old media game. I don't have any problem with it because I'll entertain it and people will view and look at it. But to really get some insight of what the next step is, you need to go directly to the president's chancellors. And if you know anything about them, and certainly the board, they keep most of the stuff close to the chest in terms of what they're trying to do and what is next. The last thing I kind of wanted to put out there is just to give you an example of how detailed you have to understand these bylaws and rules. This is the NCAA, I don't even like to call it bylaws, but this is the governance procedure. It's 20.02.5.2, sports sponsorship. A multi-sport conference shall satisfy the following requirements. This was adopted January 15, 2011, effective August 1st, 2011. A, the conference shall sponsor a minimum of 12 Division I sports. B, the conference shall sponsor a minimum of 6 men's sports, one of which shall be men's basketball. In addition to men's basketball, the conference shall sponsor football or 2 other men's team sports. A minimum of 7 members shall sponsor men's basketball, and a minimum of 6 members shall sponsor 5 other sports, including football or 2 additional men's team sports. And C, the conference shall sponsor a minimum of 6 women's sports, one of which shall be women's basketball. In addition to women's basketball, the conference shall sponsor 2 other women's team sports. A minimum of 7 members shall sponsor women's basketball. A minimum of 6 members shall sponsor 5 other sports, including 2 additional women's team sports, for a minimum of 5 members for an emerging sport of women. Why did I say all that? I just want to let you know how thick this stuff, really complicated it is. And you go ask an athletic doctor or VP athletics, do they know rule 20.02.5.2, and look at the facial expression they will show you. That gives you an indication that all of this is just a big ball of fun in regards to what's next. I love it. It's frustrating. It's entertaining. And that's what it's all about. At the end of the line, are people trying to do some constructive things? Yes. But for the most part, it's a big guess in terms of what they're trying to do. And there's so many moving parts that you can go in one direction and you'll find out later that it's not going to really work.
Jamie, give you a chance. Any final thoughts you want to share on the topic before we close out here?
I mean, just I think Dr. Cavil kind of summarized it. You're dealing with a bunch of banter and a bunch of guessing about what everybody will do, and at the end of the day, we are all guessing. We are all guessing at this point. I just want the football season to care. I'm excited about what's gonna go on with it, but as far as what will happen with any school at any time, your guess is as good as mine.
Well said. Make sure you guys out there follow Jamie Walker on Twitter at SportVoiceJW. SportVoiceJW. Jamie Walker, Coachwork Media. Hey, how's you been enjoying your snow day up in Atlanta, Jamie?
You know what, man? On my side of town, I'm on the east side, Covington, Conyers area, and so it snowed, but it didn't stick. So my kids are 16 and 11 now, so they didn't want to do anything. They played the PS5 and then was on the computer. They just looked at it. They ain't no fun anymore, man.
I saw people having snowball fights, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, really? It's like that?" I mean, so
man, you're from Indiana, man. You're used to this, man.
Man, when you grow up in this, it does not phase you anymore. Isn't that right, Brian?
It was just fun watching all you guys. Like I said, my timeline full of ATLians just standing out in the snow, just like, hey, it's snowing out here. I thought that was real fun. So hopefully it melts as fast as it came down, because you don't want to be around the next 2 days if it doesn't melt. So
no.
Good luck good luck to you guys. Dr. Kenyatta Cavil every Tuesday and Thursday night right here on the Block College Sports Network, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at DrKenyattaCavil, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, or at Inside HBCU Sports 1 on Twitter is where you can find it. And Doc, I got a homework assignment that I'd like to propose to submit, and it has to do with what is the question that I'm putting out there. What is it? What money specifically are schools chasing or running to the FBS to get? What money are they running? I have a thought. I have a theory as to what they're running to the FBS to get. So I'm curious. I'm just putting it out there, maybe to the lab listeners, or that's my submission for some extra credit work. I may have to come in and give my thoughts later, but I just thought I'd throw that out to you.
I love that. We need to put that up as an assignment, and we come back and chop it up a little more to see your thoughts in terms of your ideas and see what the listeners out there are pondering in terms of their thoughts of that question and homework assignment.
All right. Make sure you guys follow Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, Tuesday, Thursday nights. And Doc, we'll see you there. Jamie, Doc, thank you for coming in and joining us. And coming up in the next segment, we've got Charles Edmond, Alcorn State Sports Radio, joining us. The hot team in the SWAC, Alcorn State. We got to find out how they doing it coming up after these words.
I'm returning to Clinton Parish, and Tampa's my community. I grew up here, went to school here, and my wife and I make our home here. What makes Tampa special are its people. So when I represent someone injured in my community, it's personal. Call my office and speak to a real lawyer and not some referral service. I will fight the insurance companies to get the settlement that you deserve. At the law office of Clinton Parish, we take the pain out of being heard.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong.
Go get 'em.
It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
You see, Head & Shoulders has scalp shield technology, protects against flakes even between washes. It's never not working.
Kind of like us. We're never not working. Number 15?
That's my rub.
Ooh, nice.
Never not working.
Never, ever, never, ever not working.
Welcome everybody to Juneau, Alaska.
I don't like this one.
Me neither.
Let's get out of here.
Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders scalp shield technology.
Sugar Chateau Desserts is a specialty bakery located in the Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. We will create delicious and one-of-a-kind treats for any occasion. Sugar Chateau is currently shipping cakes in a jar, offering a variety of different flavors in a single-serve container that can help you celebrate in accordance with social distancing. Place your orders today by calling 803-526-7895 or visiting sugarchateaudesserts.com.
Q Time is a classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, I didn't hear my intro music. That's all right. Joining us right now on the BCSN SportsWrap, the voice of Alcorn State Sports Radio, Mr. Charles Edmond, also a diehard in the woods St. Louis Rams fan. Very nervous about Matthew Stafford tomorrow night.
That would be
Charles,
LA Rams, Brian.
I'm sorry, St. Louis. Look, did I say St. Louis?
It don't matter. The Rams, I'm worried. Yes.
All right. Well, hey, at least you made it, and I would have won. I think I won the Carson Wentz versus Matt Stafford bet. Did I win that, or do we have to wait for a playoff win?
I think you got to wait for a playoff win.
All right. I'd rather have Matthew Stafford, but anyway. All right. At least I'd be in the playoffs with Matthew Stafford. Let me just say that. All right. So, hey, make sure if you guys want to follow Charles, make sure you can follow him on Twitter at Tallman Radio, the voice of Alcorn State Athletics. And Charles, man, the Alcorn State Braves are a basketball powerhouse right now. 4-0 after a big win, taking out Texas Southern, a game that, big leads are hard to hold on to. And the Braves had an 18-point lead in the second half, as much as 11 with about 5 minutes to go, and nearly let it slip away. What's your thought on what you're seeing from these Braves, from Coach Bussy, excuse me?
What I'm seeing is a Braves team that's growing up, in front of our very eyes. If you had told me 3 weeks ago we would be 4-0 in the conference, considering what this program had to deal with, COVID issues, going back to the last game against Minnesota, Coach Bussy had COVID, left 2 coaches at home, barely could field the team to take to Minnesota, didn't know how they would come out of the quarantine, and to go to Jackson State and do what they did, that started the process. That started the confidence. And you know how confidence goes. It works both ways. When you start losing a few, you start doubting yourself. When you start winning some games, you feel good about yourself. And that Jackson State game just kind of propelled this team of going to Alabama State and Alabama A&M. I don't want to see those teams again. We're only seeing them one time. So we caught them at the right time. Jackson State was coming out of COVID protocols. We did a good job defensively and shutting down McKinnis, one of the better players in the conference. And then last night, that 18-point lead, and you knew Texas Southern was going to make a run, but the Braves made just enough plays. And the thing about this Braves team, every night it's somebody different that's scoring the basketball. It was Linnell Henry, a Prairie View transfer who was with Coach Bussey when he was an assistant coach at Prairie View, had a great night against Jackson State. Then you had Dominic Bruton had a good night. Then last night, Justin Thomas had a good night. You don't know where the offense is coming from. And this is from a coach that stresses defense first. So when you add all that, if the Braves can just lock down some people, they've got the pieces to score as many points as they need to score. And that's part of the reason why where we are right now. Offensively, it's total shock that we're getting 60, 70 points a game. Because Landon Bussey thought 65 would be the target. But we're doing way more than that right now. And our defense is pacing our offense.
That's scary. In college basketball today, to hear a coach say that 65, I know that had to shudder. I know that some fans had to be like, ooh, really? 65? Is that what we're going to be this year? But, hey, when I go back and look at the schedule and look, no home game, I mean, outside of the initial exhibition game, on the road for – well, look, I complained last year. I complained a year ago when I saw FAMU with 13 consecutive road games. How many consecutive road games has it been, including the first 3 SWAC games? What was the run there? It looks like about 15?
Yeah. We were the last team in Division I to have a home game. Everyone else in the country at every level had a home game except us going into last night's game. And I think those road games really helped us, believe it or not. I mean, we can have a whole nother conversation as to why we have so many. That's been a discussion forever and a day. That's a whole nother show, a whole nother subject. But being with this team on the road, this team really grew up. We played 2 number 1 teams, different teams at one point in our conference. We played Baylor when they were number 1, and we played Gonzaga when they were number 1.
Wow.
Is there a team in the country that's done that? Nope.
Probably not.
Is there a team that didn't have a home game until now? Nope. So I think this Braves team is doing it in a bunch of different ways, and we still don't have all of our pieces. We were without one of our bigs last night, Dontrell McQuarters, who won't play tomorrow night. And so we're getting it done without having our full roster. And you have to credit Landon Bussey, being an assistant at Prairie View. He's been there, done that, bought the T-shirt with the championships, being the lead assistant. He knows what this is about. He knows what this looks like. And I think he's got to keep the team grounded. I don't think there's any doubt that he'll do that because he's playing his former team tomorrow night. I guarantee he's fired up to play his former team tomorrow night.
No doubt. No doubt. Go ahead, Drew.
All right, Charles. A couple things that you mentioned that I want to dive a little bit deeper up on. You said you guys have been on the road with 14, 15 games. It seems like forever and a day. Of those road swings, especially when you look at it at SWAC play, which of those teams that you only playing once because it's not a true round robin anymore, are you happy that you're not playing a second time? And those teams that have to come to you only play once, that you're actually happy that you're getting them at home instead of that because of the atmosphere or the tough travel to that place or some of those things. What kind of break that down for me if you could?
Well, some teams you're only playing once. A lot of teams you're playing twice. So the teams that we're playing once, the Alabama teams, Alabama State and Alabama A&M. We play them once this year at their place. They'll come to us next year. And we play Southern once. We play Grambling once. They come to us in a couple of weeks. So next year we'll return those games. I think if you look at the schedule right now, and I think you have to break down what teams you're playing once. I don't want to see the Alabama teams again. I don't want to see them because I think they're going to get better. Mo Williams is going to have his team playing well. They won last night. A&M's just athletic. I don't want to see them again. And then you got Southern. Southern lost last night at Grambling. It's always hard to win there. We only see them one time. So, I mean, it's going to be on a rotating basis, kind of like the football schedule. And you got to look at that. we're going to see Texas Southern again. We're going to see Prairie View again. We're going to see Jackson again. So it just kind of rotates around. But I think, this schedule right now for where the Braves are doing, it's a very favorable schedule. Now, I will say this, Brian Fulford, that Florida swing next week, I'll be in your backyard come Friday and Saturday. Those are 2 trap games. If we go to Florida thinking that, we're going to lay out on the beach and have fun, we're going to get 2 losses and then the race is wide open. I mean, I'm sure you know that as you're smiling there. But, we're only playing some teams once, and I think the schedule favors Alcorn right now considering we're undefeated. But, you got to take it one game at a time. Again, we still haven't had our entire roster. You're an injury away. So you just got to take it one at a time. And I think the Braves are doing a good job of doing that and not looking ahead.
All right. Next question I got for you, Charles. Obviously, Alcorn thus far is the surprise when it comes to basketball in the SWAC. The good surprise when it comes to basketball in the SWAC. What are some of the other surprises that you have seen as you have looked at or traveled around the SWAC as far as good and bad when it comes to SWAC basketball, both on the men and the women's side?
I would say on the men's side, the surprise would be Jackson State's men. There was a must-win last night against Prairie View. They were 0-3, staring at 0-5 the way they were playing. If they didn't win last night, I think it's going to be tough to beat Texas Southern tomorrow. Then they go to Florida with us. They could be staring at 0-7, 1-6, and then they're in trouble for a team that played so well. So I think on the men's side, that's a surprise on the negative end. I think obviously the Braves are the big surprise. I think right now there's not many other surprises that I can think of. I think Valley's still trying to figure it out. Pine Bluff's men has a first-year head coach. He's still trying to figure it out. Bethune and FAMU are just kind of, going back and forth. Not much of a surprise there first year in the SWAC. On the women's side, the Lady Braves struggling the way that they are, I think that's kind of a surprise. We're kind of undersized. We got to play really well to win. We got to create turnovers, and we've done that, but we're not shooting the ball very well. So I think that's kind of a surprise, we played well last night against Texas Southern, had a chance to win the game. But I think as far as on the women's side, I would say Dawn Brown and UAPB. I mean, if you look at the non-conference schedule, they won the USM tournament. They had a pretty decent non-conference schedule, and they looked pretty good last night. So I think UAPB on the women's side. I think Southern University, even though they lost last night, definitely not a surprise. So I think right now it's still kind of early. I think COVID is playing a part in this for me personally. I'm giving it a little more time because of all the pauses and starts and stops. I'm gonna give it another week or two, another game or two to kind of see how this schedule and how the standings are round out.
Last question before I turn it back over to Brian. And on the women's side, is there anybody who's going to be able to give Jackson State a competitive game on the women's side? Because they look like they could run through this conference we'll just put it like that.
Yeah, Jackson State, it's going to take a good team on a good day, and Jackson State's going to have a bad day. When you talk about Amisha Williams, the thing about Jackson State, and I think the 3 teams that have quality bigs, A&M, with Doriana Lewis, Jackson State with Amisha Williams, and Alabama State can throw a bunch of bigs at you. I think for Jackson State, it's going to take a really good team on a good day because Amisha Williams has shooters and pieces around her that can still knock the ball in the bucket. Rogan and others, we saw that they can score from all different levels. So it's going to take a heck of a lot. They kind of sleptwalked through the first quarter last night against Prairie View, and then they just turned it on and blew the doors off of it. And I'm sure Coach Reed got on the team about that. But I don't see it, but I will say if there's one team that could trip them up, and I think because they have the quantity of bigs, and I saw it last week, it's Alabama State. They got the shooters. They can hit from 3. And they can throw a lot of bigs at Amisha Williams, maybe frustrate her, bracket her. If there's one team I think that can do it, it's Alabama State.
And they've got the motivation. Alabama State, if anybody has the motivation, given the fact that how they lost out to them in the SWAC championship game, and the way that game went in the final 2 minutes, they definitely have the motivation to. I have seen the COVID protocols rear its head, already affecting some teams with losses. I've seen other teams have to battle through it. Case in point, Florida A&M last night, as good as UAPB looked, FAMU had to play that game last night without their second, third, and fourth leading scorer, and in terms of minutes, second, third, fourth, and you don't have the head coach. So I was going to ask you, and it was not very well reported, very well known. What's your thought on the COVID protocols as they are, and should we know? Should it be sort of known? Should the conference at some level make it aware, make teams or make media aware? I don't know, maybe not teams, but at least make the media aware that, hey, so-and-so has entered into health and safety protocols and they're not available. I don't know what your thought is on that. I have thoughts on it for various reasons, but what's your thought on the COVID protocols within the conference right now?
I think the SWAC protocols are kind of similar to what you're seeing throughout the conference. The first game that jumped out in my mind, I think Houston was playing Cincinnati in the American Conference. And this was right before SWAC season because they were in their conference season. And Houston had to forfeit that game, not reschedule, forfeit, because they had the COVID issues. And even in our conference, we've already had it. Prairie View had to forfeit their first two games. I think I don't have a problem with it, to be honest. It doesn't matter to me whether, it doesn't matter if Landon Bussey or another coach. I mean, I don't think it really matters. I mean, because you have to have a certain number of players and coaches. I mean, if you don't have a head coach or your number one assistant, and if you don't have 7 players, 8 players, you can't play the game. I don't have a problem with it. For me, I know it's tough, but we've been through this, and it's kind of tough for me, because I want to see these games get played because it does impact fans. It does impact these teams. And I know for Prairie View, Coach Smith, and I asked Coach Bussey about it the other day, how's Coach Smith doing? Have to forfeit the first 2 games. He said, hey, it is what it is. You just got to roll forward. And that's kind of where we are. As frustrating as it is, I don't have a problem with the protocols. You just have to make sure you got to continue to stay safe as best as you can and try to keep 7 or 8 players safe. You got to keep your whole team, but at minimum, so you can play the game. If not, you're going to have to forfeit the game. We've got 3 assistant coaches. So, Coach Bussey had, COVID for the Minnesota game. The lead assistant, Coach Adams, was there. We could have played the game, but obviously with, testing positive, that game was canceled a couple hours before. I don't have a problem with the protocols. I just think we just have to stay as safe as we possibly can. And if you think about it, all right, so within the last week or 2, other than Prairie View situation, I think Valley had a situation. We've had a pretty good run of all the games being played. Maybe we're turning the corner in this thing. Maybe teams are being safer, doing what they're supposed to do. So hopefully, we can be on the up and up and get all these games played from here on out. But I'm realistic. But I do understand there's going to be starts and stops.
But Charles, is it the games being played or the quality of the games being played? Because I think sometimes we just got people who may just be out there with our favorite school's uniform on, where you've got number 10, 11, and 12 and 2 walk-ons playing starters minutes due to COVID versus having your full 8-man rotation playing. And let's be real, Charles, somewhere in March, this is going to affect what happens in Birmingham. Be it a team that makes it to Birmingham versus a team that stays home. Somebody's going to benefit. Somebody's going to be, I hate to use the word penalized, but somebody's going to lose it. Or this could possibly affect seeding, where we see matchups that we would see on day 2 or day 3 of the tournament. You may see it day 1 because of forfeits here and there. Your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we hope, knock on wood. I was at the SWAC basketball tournament last year in Birmingham. I had to test after every game. Every team had to test after every game. it is, and I think it's affecting the quality of play right now. And that's why I'm taking a pause on terms of that, because I do understand and respect the starts and stops that these teams are having, not having their roster, quarantines, you don't have everybody. And I think that is impacting the quality of play that you're seeing right now. And that's why I'm a little bit more patient. I think a lot of fans, if you're a fan of whatever team, you might not be patient. You want to see it off the charts right now. Well, that's probably not realistic. You got to take a pause and understand what we're dealing with. And there's some teams that are doing it right, but there are some teams that are not. And I'm not going to judge either way. It is what, as they say, it is what it is. The teams that are shorthanded, they just got to plow through it. The ones that are doing it the right way, good job. But I do think it's impacting the quality and quantity of play, because you don't have your players. You might not have your assistant. So I mean, we saw it with Alabama A&M last week. Coach Margaret Richards was in COVID protocols. Your head coach, but you got 2 or 3 assistants. So so that does impact things too when you have the assistant coach running the team as compared to the head coach. I think you're going to see more of that, unfortunately, until we get on the other side of it. I still think we're weeks away from that. But as of right now, guys, we haven't had a cancellation or a forfeiture in the last couple of weeks. I hope that continues, because I do think if that continues, I think the quality will go up when you have a lot of your players available.
Good point. And hey, overall, the SWAC should be applauded. All the SWAC schools should be applauded, because you're getting games in. There are teams in the MEAC who have yet to play a conference game, and here we are going into the 3rd week of January, and you've got some teams that have not played a conference game yet. So, I bring all these things up not to poo-poo on it, but hey, props to everybody for doing what you're doing. Last question for you, Charles, before we let you out of here. The attendance. How was the attendance for the first home game, and what are you seeing from the attendance at some of the other SWAC contests that you've been on the road for thus far?
Well, first of all, your first part of the question, last night for our first home game, I thought it would be a little bit more, to be honest, considering we're kind of the buzz of the conference. But I do think COVID is playing a part in that too. A lot of our older alums and fans are just choosing to stay on the sidelines. If things get better, maybe later on when we play Jackson State and Southern at home, students are back. And I think that's the other part of it too. Students are not back. Our school has been paused until not Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. But attendance, I would say, is below what I would expect at this time of year. But school's not in session. Students are not in session. The bands aren't back. I think once you get that, I think you'll have better attendance as we go forward.
Good point. All right. Again, Alcorn State 4-0 right now in the SWAC on the men's side, sitting in first place as the lone unbeaten in SWAC play. On Monday night, tomorrow on King Day, they're hosting Prairie View A&M, Coach Bussey's former team where he was an assistant at. So I know the guys will be just as excited to get Coach a win against his old school. And that'll be a good contest. Prairie View coming off of a loss on the road at Jackson State. So we'll see if the Braves can stay unbeaten before they hit the Florida swing. And, hey, the best thing you guys can hope for, if the weather stays like it is this weekend, the guys will stay indoors. They won't be on the beach. So, man. But it could change, Charles. We could get 80-degree weather and sunshine, and then, that it's all over.
Yeah. Well, you see what I'm wearing right now, a hoodie, right? I've already looked at the forecast for Tallahassee and Daytona. Highs in the 50s. If it gets to 70, that's a heat wave. I've already looked at the forecast. I thought I would bring some shorts next week. Thought I would lay on the beach next week. That ain't gonna happen. I might need to bring a skull cap and gloves next week, Brian Fulford. You got to do something about that.
You might need to. It's what we call. I don't know if it's. You don't quite call it.
Hey, Brian,
winter,
let's put an order in for about 65 degrees and sunny, so that way they go out and just have fun outside. You do what you want to, Charles. We talking about those players, those Braves. So they go out and spend a little bit too much time running around, and then they're tired when they step into the Lawson Center. We don't care what y'all do in Daytona. We just care about when y'all step into the Lawson Center.
Well, I tell you what, Landon Bussey has a rein on his team, and based on what's going on, players aren't getting out and about at all. I mean, he's got that cocoon around that program. and he understands he can't afford to lose any more players due to COVID. You're getting tested. You know, be where you're supposed to be, do what you're supposed to do, because we're going to need everybody we can going to FAMU and Bethune. I still believe win or lose tomorrow, those games in Florida could be 2 trap games. And if we get trapped in those 2 games, the SWAC race is wide open again.
Well said. Make sure to follow Charles at Tallman Radio on Twitter, and tune in if you can to the Alcorn State Sports Network. You broadcast it on YouTube again, Charles, or where can they catch the broadcast?
Yeah, you can catch it on the Alcorn State Sports YouTube channel. We got that up, and I was getting some texts last night. Some folks were watching it. We're cranking that up. So we'll be hot and running tomorrow. We're going to be the early game on the national holiday. I think we're playing at 3 o'clock for the women's games.
Yep.
Some of those are at 5:30, but we decided due to the holiday, give folks a chance to get in early, get home early, and get ready for work. I think it's a good idea by Tim Smith, our athletics operations manager, to change the time of the game. And for me, in a selfish way, because the Rams play at 7:30, so I'll be able to get home.
There you go.
And catch Sean McVay and put my headset on and coach the game tomorrow night, the Rams in Arizona.
Exactly. Get those candles and prayer beads ready for that contest.
Yes.
Whatever it
Absolutely.
takes. All right, Charles. Hey, I'll be in touch with you. I'll give you a call. Got some other things I wanted to shoot at you, so I'll give you a call later. I won't disturb you during the game, so I'm gonna catch you later tonight. I'll give you a buzz. All right.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Thanks again to Charles Edmond, the voice of Alcorn State Sports Radio. We'll be back after these words. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
I'm returning to Clinton Parish, and Tampa's my community. I grew up here, went to school here, and my wife and I make our home here. What makes Tampa special are its people. So when I represent someone injured in my community, it's personal. Call my office and speak to a real lawyer and not some referral service. I will fight the insurance companies to get the settlement that you deserve. At the law office of Clinton Parish, we take the pain out of being hurt.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong.
Go get 'em.
It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
You see, Head & Shoulders has Scalp Shield technology, protects against flakes even between washes. It's never not working.
Kind of like us. We're never not working. Number 15?
That's my rub.
Ooh, nice.
Never not working.
Never, ever, never, ever not working.
Welcome everybody to Juneau, Alaska.
I don't like this one.
Me neither.
Let's get out of here.
Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Sugar Chateau Desserts is a specialty bakery located in the Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. We will create delicious and one-of-a-kind treats for any occasion. Sugar Chateau is currently shipping cakes in a jar, offering a variety of different flavors in a single-serve container that can help you celebrate in accordance with social distancing. Place your orders today by calling 803-526-7895 or visiting sugarchateaudesserts.com.
Q Time is a classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Bryan and AD here. Again, want to thank you guys out there watching us on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter. Please make sure you are subscribed to the Jericho broadcast networks and our multitude of ways that you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at MyBCSN1, the number one. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to that Jericho Broadcast Network's page on JBN1 on YouTube and on Facebook. Make sure you are a part of whether it be the Sports Wrap or the Jericho Broadcast Network's BCSN. And then you can go download our app, the Jericho Broadcast Network's app, on the Google or Apple Play Store. Just search MyJBN, MyBCSN. So before we get to the debut of, I think this is now week 3 of our top 5 poll for Division I, men and women, Division II, NAIA, I thought Drew and I would kind of do one final run through of the games from the Saturday, mostly Saturday. I don't think most teams are playing Wednesday, Thursday games, but we'll just kind of go through some of the action. And so I thought I'd start in the MEAC, Drew. And just a little note here, as I was looking through the scores in the MEAC, men and women, there are on the women's side of the bracket, there are 3 schools that still have not played a conference game yet: Howard, Maryland Eastern Shore, and Dell State. They have not played a game yet on the women's side, conference game.
And that is not by design.
No, yeah, correct. Not by design. So that's pretty interesting. And those are games that I'm assuming they will work to try to reschedule, or they may end up being forfeits. I mean, there's no telling. Right now, they're trying to postpone or reschedule.
The MEAC did not put out a statement like the SIAC and the SWAC have. So I guess that gives them some latitude. Oh, they did? I hadn't seen that.
Yeah. It came out, matter of fact, it came out the Monday, right after our show. So it's recently come out this week. I've seen it. It's very similar to the what we've seen in the SIAC. But
minimum number of players forfeit.
Correct. Yeah, but they want to try within a 5-day window, try to reschedule as best as you can. Big stories for the women, you had Coppin State with a 67-66 win over Morgan State. South Carolina State with a 2-point victory over North Carolina Central. That was South Carolina State's first win of the season. They were previously 0-14. Got their first win, and so now they sit in a tie for first place at 1-0 with Coppin State and Norfolk State in the conference. And shout out to Coppin State, Coach Lauren Harper. Again, that's a team who had a very tough year last spring, I guess. And to see them having the success that they're having, props to her, as they kind of sit right now at 7-7 overall. On the men's side, best game that if you liked what you saw in the Coppin State Morgan State game, you should have watched. You should have had an opportunity to watch the Norfolk State Howard game. Norfolk State on the road, 77-74 over Howard. Joe Bryant Jr. scored 24 points, and on the road, Norfolk State goes 2-0 in conference play, 11-4 overall And Howard has not played a game in about I'd say about 3 weeks. So Howard really played well in that contest, especially at one point they were down 10, actually had the lead with about maybe 2 minutes to go before they lost that game. So it was a good tune-up for Howard, who actually is hosting the University of Notre Dame on Monday in Bird Gymnasium. So that's a big game for Howard.
I believe that's
of
at
course,
3 o'clock on Fox Sports, if I remember that correctly, Brian.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a big game for Howard. Of course, Coach Blakeney and Notre Dame's Coach Bray, have a relationship back to their Duke days. So that'll be a good game. Norfolk State and Coppin both sitting at 2-0 in the leader spot in the MEAC. Over in the SWAC, again, SWAC was an interesting day for the men because the top 6 teams going into Saturday all played each other. You had, at the time, number 1 Southern taking on 5th seeded or in 5th place Grambling. Grambling got the win 83-77 on a night when Grambling, do you see who Grambling dedicated their court and hung a jersey up in their rafters for?
That would be one Mr. Willis Reed. And his claim to fame happened, Brian, well, after I was born, but before you were born. Would be the New York Knicks day when he limped out on the court and scored the first 4 points of the game and led them. No, that was before we were born. Both of us was born.
Yeah, because wasn't that like 70? That was the 70 team?
That was 1970. I think because they won in 70 and 73. So, yeah, that was 1970. That was before we were born. Everybody on this production was born.
Yes. So shout out to Grambling for I don't know what always I'm not going to go into it, but hey, congratulations Grambling. Good job on recognizing Willis Reed. And hey, you got to
giving him his roses while he was still here.
Amen. Well, exactly. Over the top seeded Southern. So that's Southern's first loss in conference play. Then you had number 2 Alcorn going up against number 3 Texas Southern. We just talked about Alcorn coming away with a 1-point win. Although Texas Southern had their shot, they had a chance to get that win, couldn't do it. And then, of course, you had number 4 Alabama A&M losing by 4 points overall to Alabama State, who was in 6th. And so now when you look at the standings on the men's side for the SWAC, you've got the lone star is lone unbeaten is Alcorn, followed up by Southern, Texas Southern, then Grambling State, the 2 Alabama schools. And hey, Florida A&M, watch out, got a big win in overtime. Might be sitting on the player of the year. The early favorite, in my opinion, for conference player of the year, MJ Randolph, averaging 24 a game in SWAC competition. Early favorite. Nobody else is even close to 20 in terms of points per game. So, I just had to put that out there. Let's kind of flip over, Drew, to over in the SIAC. You mentioned on the women's side, Savannah State continues rolling. I mean, Savannah State women continue to roll as they are now, I believe, 13-0. 13-0 overall. And their record in conference play currently sits at 9-0 in conference play as they got a win last night. I believe that was against I'm looking at the schedule now, trying to see how quickly I can pull that up for you. It was Fort Valley State, by 38. So, again, they continue with their large margins of victory. Albany State gets a 2-point win over Allen. Lane College, 64-47 over Spring. Miles, 76-62 over Central. And so Tuskegee was off. Kentucky State was off. Edward Waters and Clark got postponed. But when you look at the standings for the women's side, Benedict is sitting in second place in the East Division. Miles is still sitting in first place by just about a half a game in the loss column over Lane, 5-3. Tuskegee only played 4 conference games so far. They're sitting at 3-1. So by percentages, or no, I guess wins count. So obviously Miles and Lane are in first place, although Tuskegee has the best win percentage in conference. So again, I can never figure out the SIC and how they're doing things. But anyway, I'll especially on the
Brian.
I know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Look, on the women's side, we need to look to this Saturday. Benedict, Savannah State play this Saturday in Columbia, South Carolina. Right now, that's scheduled for an evening game at 5:30 in Columbia, South Carolina. And that game looks like that will be live streamed, Brian, on Benedict Tigers sports network. So that's going to be the game to determine whether Savannah is for real, because we know what Benedict can do. We haven't seen what Savannah does when they go up against that level of competition this year, because their game against Tuskegee was postponed earlier this year.
Yeah, no, I think Savannah State is for real. I just think this is their test. Much like Tuskegee a year ago, or I guess in the spring, Tuskegee was for real. You just needed to see them prove it against Benedict and sort of overcome that opponent. Moving over to the men in the SIAC, Miles got a victory over Central State. Morehouse with a win over Benedict. Albany State by 30+ over Allen. Lane with a 3-point win over Spring Hill. And so when you look at the standings over in the SIAC on the men's side, you have Benedict sitting in first place with a 7-1 conference record. Morehouse right behind them at 7-2. Over on the east side. On the west side, it's Miles with a 5-1 conference record, followed by Tuskegee and Lane. A little bit tighter there from 1 to 4 in the West Division. Although, it was interesting. I look at the total games played. Again, the discrepancies are amazing from one school to the next, Drew, and it's just head-scratching. But I do want to, go ahead. What you were going to say something? I'm going to before.
I was going to say, traditionally the SIAC has always been like that. Even in pre-COVID times, when you see some schools are heavily front-loaded with conference games, and some schools are heavily backloaded with conference games. The SIAC schedule has always seemed to be like that. So, don't be surprised with that as of right now. And also a team that I want to see, Brian, and keep an eye out for is Lemoyne Orm with Bonzi Wells as their first-year coach. They've been streaky. They've won 2-3 in a row. They've lost 2-3 in a row. I want to see if they can figure it out before it gets down into conference tournament time.
Okay, over in the CIAA on the men's side of things, there's 2 unbeatens left in conference play. That's Virginia Union sitting at 4-0 in conference play, 11-3 overall. Lincoln, PA, I believe Lincoln lost this past Saturday, and so Lincoln drops to 4-1 in conference play. They're still 11-5 overall. The other unbeaten in conference play, Fayetteville State at 4-0. 9-5 overall. Behind them, Winston-Salem State, who's sitting at 4-2, and so that's over on the men's side. And I just mentioned Lincoln, PA, losing Bowie State with a 82-76 win over Lincoln, PA. Virginia Union with a 18-point win over Virginia State. That was a big win. Winston-Salem gets a 3-point victory over St. Aug. Shaw with a 10-point win over Elizabeth City State. Livingstone with a 3-point win over Claflin. And I got to give some props to the CIAA schools and the CIAA network. Good to see that you want to watch some CIAA basketball. It's easy to find. It's accessible, and you've got some audio commentary in most of those games. So just want to give a personal shout out to the CIAA and the CIAA network for what they're doing. Over on the women's side, let's see. The women's side of things, over in the Northern Division, you've got Elizabeth City State and Lincoln, PA, both sitting at 4-1 in conference play. But you got Virginia State with 5 wins in conference. And all 3 of those teams, when you start getting into division, I guess that's how they separate, who's going to come out in what seed in the CIAA based on division. So all those teams are 1-0 in division play. And then over in the southern side in conference play, it's really a cluster because anybody from Claflin, Johnson C. Smith, and St. Aug on the women's side all are 1-0 in division, but their conference records are kind of scattered. Nobody really above 500 over there on the southern side of the CIAA. We talked a little bit earlier, Drew, about Paul Quinn. Paul Quinn, of course, still unbeaten. Managed to pick up a big win the other day with a victory over
non-tournament eligible Paul Quinn. Let's put that out there.
But they're unbeaten though in conference play. I believe they're 15-0 overall, 4-0 in conference play, with a 66-65 win in overtime in that contest. That was over Houston Tillotson, I believe, is who they got that win over. If I'm seeing that correctly, I had it, but then I lost it. So I believe that was Houston Tillotson. Yeah, it was over Houston Tillotson, 66-65. Also looking at a couple of postponements there. Xavier's game against Wiley got postponed. Texas College's game against LSU Shreveport got postponed. Jarvis Christian lost in double overtime to LSU Alexandria, national ranked LSU Alexandria. They lost that game 96-89.
LSU Alexandria, number 14.
Right, 14th ranked. Yeah. We already mentioned the fact that Stillman got the win in that contest on the buzzer beater against William Carey University. Let me see. I think Talladega was off. They got a win on Thursday against Dillard, their old GCAC rival. They got a 75-73 win over Talladega. And so Monday night, Talladega travels out to Bruton Parker, and that's when they've got a contest on that day. So just kind of doing a quick little glance up ahead to see if there's any interesting matchups coming up there. All right, Drew, you ready to give you ready to let people know the top 5 basketball rankings as they are after 3 weeks? We ready to run this through?
Sure. But before we do that, I just want to chime in on a couple of comments off of Facebook and Twitter. Excuse me, Facebook and YouTube. Let's see. Space Age 3000 said, would you say HBCU basketball is much more on course to contending with the PWI schools day in and day out? Joseph Davis says HBCU teams collectively need to secure more out-of-conference wins, especially against mid-majors. Just try to pick out some. Karen Griffin, both A&T and FAMU are aiming for all-one status by 2030. And Dr. Cavil came in. I'm not sure who he was responding to. Won an NAIA basketball championship as well. I'm not quite sure where that who that comment was directed at.
Go back to that comment by Karen again. She said R1. Is that what she said? Or D?
A&T, yeah. A&T and FAMU are aiming for all-one status by 2030.
I'm not really sure.
That
She
was
referring to
research schools. The research schools.
Oh, okay. Academic stuff. Okay.
Yeah, academic. Yeah, I know
All
we're a
right.
sports show, Brian. Sometimes you can't be so narrowly focused there, Brian.
I am what I am, man. I'm sorry.
I got you.
I can only contain. I can only contain so much, but even when you start talking academics, I can shake my head and say, oh really? Okay, that's interesting. Really,
There you go.
I can formulate a question.
you learned well at SBI.
I
Read
did.
the
They
rules,
taught me how to be able to.
formulate the
Yes,
question.
they taught me how to formulate a question. I may not know what the heck I'm hearing, but I can formulate a question. So there we go.
Hey, what was it back in that day? Workforce 2000. That was always our go-to question.
All right.
Hey, Joseph Davis said we moving on up to the east side to a deluxe apartment in the Sky High. We know what that's in reference to.
Man, well, yeah, we are. Okay. All right. Coming up
let's
here,
get to these rankings.
Yeah, top 5 rankings. Again, these are computer formulated rankings here with the Black College Sports Network basketball rankings. We dropped the top 5 men and women on the D1 and D2 and the NAIA level. What, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, Dr. Cavil just shot me a text. He clarified what he was talking about on that comment on YouTube. Willis Reed won an NAIA championship. That's what he was referring to. When we were talking about Willis Reed. Yeah, we were talking about the NCAA championships. Excuse me, not NCAA, NBA championships. Yes, he did win NAIA championship with Grambling. I believe that was in the late 50s or maybe like 58, 59. No, that was Tennessee State around there. Doc, if you pay attention, if you can shoot me that year, I do remember Grambling winning. Long before I was born, so I don't know what year that was. Anyway, speaking of Division One, let's get to these Division One rankings.
Probably in the 60s. Hey, okay, here we go. Top 5 Division One men's. I'm going to start from 5 to 1. Number 5 coming in with an overall record of 3-14, but a 1-0 record in conference. Coppin State barely coming in above. Coppin State now happens to have the 4th toughest strength of schedule this particular season. They come in at number 5. Number 4 is Texas Southern out of the SWAC, 5-9, 3-2 in conference play. Number 3, Alcorn State, the Braves, come in with a 5-11 record, 4-0 in conference play. Number 2, formerly number 1, Southern University, 7-8 overall record, 3-1 now in conference play. And the new number 1 at the Division One level, Norfolk State, the Spartans got a big road win, sitting at 8-4, 2-0 in conference play. And of course, just a reminder, we don't include games against lower division opponents. So even though Norfolk may say they're 11-4, which they have every right to do, as a count for us, we only count their Division One opponents. Just on the outside was North Carolina A&T, Alabama State, and Alabama A&M. Just on the outside of the top 5.
That was 1961, according to Dr. Cavil.
I was going to say, I knew it was 60s. I knew it was the 60s.
Tennessee State won. Tennessee State won in the late 50s when they won the NAIA championship. So that's right. Yeah.
It'd be nice if our social media directors at our schools, as much as they put out information on Twitter and Instagram, and you got Greek strolling and doing all this other stuff, every now and then it'd be nice if you dropped the, hey, back in the day, just a little historical, thing, just a historical nugget, let you have a chance to educate students and young people about all of the great things that your program did. And whether it be because they wouldn't let us be in their games or we dominated in in conferences and leagues with them because we had the best players in our
Well, most of
conferences.
us don't realize all HBCUs were NAIA back in the day. We were not always NCAA schools. But I digress. That's a show for another day, Brian. Let's get into these women's rankings.
You're right. Way to get me back on topic. All right, here we go. Top 5 in the Division I women's category. I'm going to start with number 5. UAPB got a big win over Florida A&M the other day. They are now 6-8 overall, 3-2 in conference. Number 4 is the Norfolk State women, sitting at 4-7 overall, 1-0 in conference play. Number 3, moving up, I believe, is Jackson State. Jackson State. It's a tight race between 1, 2, and 3. I just want people to notice. So as you hear these 3 teams, it's very tight. Jackson State sitting at 6-6, 4-0, unbeaten in conference play. The number 2 team, I don't think they were in the top 5 last week, so this is props to them, is Coppin State. The Coppin State Eagles sitting at 7-7 overall, 1-0 in conference play. And the number 1 team still for the 3rd week in a row, the Tennessee State Lady Tigers, but the gap between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is getting shorter. The Lady Tigers are 8-7 overall, 4-1 in conference play. So got a couple of programs with 2 schools there. I think Coppin State and Norfolk State, both with teams in the top 5. So pretty good. Just on the outside, you've got Alabama State, Hampton, and Southern. Those 3 schools just on the outside looking in. Let's go down to the Division II level. On the men's side, Division II men's top 5. We're going from 5 to 1. Number 5, Winston-Salem State. The Rams come in with an overall record of 10-4, 4-3 overall. Lincoln, PA moves to number 4, 11-5 overall, 4-1 in conference play. Benedict comes in just barely over Lincoln, PA in terms of points, 11-4 record. They are 7-1 in conference play. Number 2, Fayetteville State, 9-5 overall, unbeaten in the CIAA, and also unbeaten, but sitting in the number 1 spot, Virginia Union. Virginia Union, the Panthers, coming in right now, 11-3 overall, 4-0 in conference. And Miles College just barely missing the top 5. And Morehouse also just very close to making the top 5 as well.
Should be noted. Barely missed it. Miles barely missed it.
Yeah, barely missed it. Barely missed it. When it comes to the top 5 in terms of strength of schedule, Fayetteville State coming in with the 2nd toughest strength of schedule. And so to see them sitting at number 2, pretty impressive, making the most out of their contest when they have them.
Hey, okay, Brian, you know what this looks like? Quickly, you know what this looks like? Looks like a CIAA party, and Benedict crashed it by coming in at number 3.
Well said. It does. It does. Definitely. The CIAA coming in strong. We'll see what that means later on down the road. Is the CIAA a better Division II conference right now than the SIAC? Sure is shaping up to look that way, huh? How about on the women's side, though? Might not be able to say that on the women's side, though. We've got 3 SIAC schools in the top 5, and one of them just on the outskirts. So for the women's side, you've got sitting in 5th place Tuskegee, the Golden Tigers, in 5th place with an 8-2 record, 3-1 in conference play. Number 4, Elizabeth City State, 11-2 overall, 4-1 in conference play. Right above them in the 3 spot, Lincoln, PA, coming in at 11-4, 4-1 in conference play. Benedict College, just barely over Lincoln, PA, 11-5 is their record. They are 6-1 in conference play. And the new number 1 team in Division II, Savannah State, unbeaten, 13-0, 8-0 in conference play, and you just kind of knew eventually the wins would eventually help them and push them forward. And so Savannah State, the new number 1 in Division II. All right, no comment from Drew. All right, we'll keep moving here. I thought you might have added
Did you
something.
mention? You mentioned Miles, West Virginia State, and Virginia State on the outside looking in?
You just did. There you go.
Okay. All right. I got you. Oh, and by the way, I got to throw my Tuskegee piece in. Tuskegee still in the top 5 despite being idle for the last 2 weeks.
Ooh, okay. Won't last for long if they don't get some wins in. So hopefully everybody's staying safe and they actually are able to get some games in over there in Tuskegee. All right, last division here is the NAIA level. So we'll go from 5 to 1, starting in the men's. Number 5, you've got Florida Memorial down in South Florida there. They come in at 9-10 overall, 5-3 in conference. They have the 4th toughest schedule among HBCUs in NAIA. Number 4, Xavier, now part of the Red River. They are 10-2 overall, 2-1 in conference play. Number 3, Stillman comes in with 11-3 record, 4-3 overall. Number 2, formerly was number 1 for the last couple weeks. That was Talladega College. They are now number 2, just dropping 14-1 overall, 4-0 in conference play. The new number 1, Paul Quinn, unbeaten, 13-0, 4-0 in conference play, barely taking a spot away from Talladega. So shout out to Paul Quinn moving into the 1 spot. Again, what we're seeing with Paul Quinn and Savannah State previously, winning matters. Eventually, it adds up. So shout out to Paul Quinn, the new number 1 on the NAIA men in our week number 3. Let's move over to the ladies. The ladies on the women's side, number 5, Florida Memorial, sitting at number 5, 7-6 overall, 5-1 in conference play. Number 4 is Stillman College. Stillman comes in at 6-6, 2-3 in conference play. Should be noted, Stillman has the number 3 toughest schedule among HBCU programs. Number 3, Langston. Langston just suffered a loss, I believe, just this past weekend.
Yeah, they split.
They are now 12-4, 8-3 in conference play. Number 2, Rust College. Rust coming in with 11-3 record. I don't have any conference games by Rust yet.
GCAC has not played any conference games.
Okay, good to know.
GCAC usually doesn't play until February.
Mm-hmm. And the standard is the standard in the NAIA. It's Talladega for the 3rd consecutive week. The Tornadoes, the Lady Tornadoes, come in number 1 for the 3rd consecutive week, 10-4 overall, 5-2 in conference play. They have the number 2 ranked strength, 2nd toughest strength of schedule is actually what I want to say there for Talladega. Just on the outside, you've got Xavier and Paul Quinn women, both kind of sitting on the outskirts along with the Virgin Islands. Look at that, trying to find their way into the top 5.
UVI had games today against another HBCU. I believe it may be Rust, if I remember that correctly. I saw that when I was looking through the schedules today. They've got back-to-back games at home in the Virgin Islands. What a way to spend your King Day, going down to the Virgin Islands, Brian.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would have been nice if I'd have known that was an opportunity there that I could have been a part of.
I'm gonna blame my CEO for not seeing that on the schedule and booking us to produce that game.
Nice. There you go. Okay. Any final words, Drew, as we get ready to close out this show?
Well, this is King Weekend, a day of service that we traditionally ask people to give. So, make sure that you find something appropriate to give your time we always giving money. Well, let me rephrase that. We always supposed to be giving money, but your time could be just as valuable as the money that you give. And on a personal note, tomorrow is not only my mother's birthday, but my brother's birthday also. So happy birthday, y'all.
Wow. Okay.
January 17th.
That's awesome. All right. Well,
Mom had my little brother on her birthday.
Nice. Happy birthday, Mama Drew. All right.
Don't. Hey, I will tell you what she said. Don't ever call me Miss Drew.
That's why I said, you know what? For some reason, that's why I said I'm not the Drew. That's why I just said it that way. Something told me not to do that. Want to give a shout out to I believe on Saturday, the AKAs, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, had their Founders Day on Saturday. My mother
Don't forget
and
the Kappas
sister
earlier this week.
I don't have any family members that are Kappas, so I don't.
That's okay.
Anyway, yeah, shout out to them. But anyway, Saturday I was going with something that was personal to me. So yeah, that's all right. You can shout them out all you want. So shout out to the AKs on Saturday. And then I believe today the Zetas, Zeta Phi Beta, had their Founders Day. So my niece, and of course she is a Zeta woman, and so shout out to them for their Founders Day. January is like the big Founders Day month, isn't it? Everybody had their organizations founded in January.
I think SG Row had theirs earlier this month. The Alphas this month.
It makes sense. January is the start of a new year, so it makes sense, right?
Yes. Yeah. So
right.
Why not?
Yeah, make sure to watch out for some good basketball tomorrow in the on the schedule, especially for the SWAC, and then of course check out that Howard University Notre Dame game as the Fighting Irish come into Burr Gymnasium, and hopefully we'll get some more games where instead of our HBCUs going out to PWIs for a paycheck, maybe those schools will come to an HBCU more often, and hopefully it draws attendance. Although this being a COVID year, again, who knows what'll happen. So that's all we can say on that. So I want to give a shout out to, again, our producer Melody for helping us out and getting the show going. Shout out to producer Roy and all his efforts. And make sure you are tuned in to the Black College Sports Network this week. A full host of shows. Any show that you miss, you can find on the BCSN Pod Zone. That's everywhere, anywhere that you download and subscribe and listen to podcasts. You can find all of our shows in a timely manner on the BCSN Pod Zone. So we're everywhere and everywhere and more. That's all I got. So that's going to do it for this show. I'm Brian Fulford. He's AD Drew. And for all of us on the Sports Wrap, we say peace out, stay safe, God bless you.
I holla.
But stay hard.